it's really important not to make women wrong. So it's very easy for leaders or hiring managers to kind of say, well, we don't have enough women, there aren't enough women, and kind of like blame women for the lack of women in the industry. The women are there. Women want to come into this industry. So I want to be really, really clear on that.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the next episode on Pivot. And this time, we've got a fantastic guest, Jane Frankland. Jane, welcome. How's it going?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Yeah, thanks for having me on the show.
No, it's an absolute pleasure for us to have you here. I think we are also venturing down the path of thought leadership and those who are becoming more influential in society, especially in the world of OSINT and cybersecurity. And I think you've got some great stories to share with us and a lot of learnings that I think we can all learn from and appreciate. So without talking too much, let's get stuck into it. I mean, tell us about yourself.
Well, my name is Jane. I work in cybersecurity. Been in the industry for 25 years. This month, actually, it's just like, wow, it's gone so fast. I came into the industry starting my own penetration testing company. So I've never met anyone who's done this. It's just like absolutely crazy. My background actually was art and design. So I changed my career. After graduating, I fell pregnant with my first son. I've got 3 kids and started working as a designer. And then because the money wasn't coming in, I had an agent and everything like that. I was doing really well, but the money wasn't coming in. I decided to, and was encouraged to actually change my career. So I entered sales. Again, something that I thought I never would do. I was so anti it because I'm an introvert, and then I ended up kind of falling into technology. I'd always been interested in technology, but fell into technology by meeting a new boyfriend, and we started a company together. And I suggested leading with security because it was something that I was interested in. So yeah, that's kind of how I started in the industry, and then everything has just like built from there.
Oh wow. Yeah, I think some of us have fallen into this sort of field. So for example, I studied IT, network security and all of that fun stuff. I didn't think I was going to end up doing sales, but you fell into something and then you become really good at it. But I mean, that's interesting coming from you because you mentioned you're more of a introverted character.
Yeah, and also I think, in the old days, like 10, 20 years ago, more of us like fell into it, so it's not, I don't think it's like that anymore. Most of us don't fall into this. Like today, it's a conscious decision. It's something we purposely choose. Falling into it is not so much of an option. Whereas way back then, when it was new, it was evolving, it was fresh. Like when I started, major brands didn't even have websites. Email was new. So it was so easy then for someone to say, hey, can you just like pick up this? Can you do this? And to kind of evolve with that. Whereas nowadays it's much more purposeful, and the requirements are so much more, whereas there weren't any requirements then. It was literally either you're doing it, I'm giving it to you, you don't have a say in this, or will you take it on? And the pressures just weren't as intense because we didn't have as many attacks and things like that. And the risks weren't as high. Now it's just, this risk is so much higher.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. I was speaking with someone recently, also from the UK. Maybe know him, Mr. Reboot, as he calls himself.
Yes, I do, on Twitter. Yeah.
Yeah. He's also a guest on the show, and we were talking about how, especially through the pandemic, the threats have increased, almost tenfold, maybe even more.
Yeah.
All right. So here's another question. Tell us about what you really do. What are you up to these days?
Yeah, so I work in cybersecurity. I work as a consultant, as a trainer, as a speaker, and also as an influencer. So, if we take the first thing, as a consultant, sometimes I'm going into companies, working with leaders to really help them better perform. So that could be building performing teams, or it could be working with them to attract and retain more women.
Mm-hmm.
So when I'm doing that, sometimes there's training involved. I'll go in and do some workshops and so on. So increasing their skills and also helping people to become more aware. Well, why is this important? Why does it matter? What's in it for me? That type of thing. So building the awareness and really helping them with certain skills. And then so that's kind of like the consulting and the training aspect. For like talks, I'm typically engaged as a keynote speaker. So I'll go in and open events, or sometimes companies will pay me to go onto a panel, or even to facilitate a panel, or even to facilitate a whole event. So that's kind of typically how I work as a speaker. And as an influencer, sometimes I'm working with big brands, very well-known brands, to really get eyes on what they're doing, or to drive my network to an event or a promotion. So, and the way that I do that is really by writing. So I'm a writer, I am a speaker, I can do videos, I can do interviews, I can get people onto my podcast to talk about something. It's my Women in Security podcast, so there has to be that as a theme. But typically that's how I'm working as an influencer. And I only work with brands who believe in the mission, in the mission I'm working on, and meet my criteria. And then aside from all of that, I have the insecurity movement, which really followed on from my book. And that is really all about how can we do better? How can we improve the situation so that we are all winning? Better solutions, like more diversity. And so the work that kind of comes from that is some research. So we don't have great data or enough data on some situations. So, for example, I did some research on events, like what is really happening at events? How targeted are women from a harassment perspective or inappropriate behavior perspective? How do women want to speak at events? Because we hear that they don't, or event organizers can't find them. So let's establish what's going on there. What do women want at events? How can we do better? How can we get more women involved in events? So that's just an example. There's more research that's coming. I'm about to do some on ethnicity, so women and ethnicity, because the intersectionality hasn't actually been looked at. We have very, very limited data for our industry, and then of course there's the code of conduct. So the code of conduct came from situations at events, so harassment at events. And so what I did was I pulled the industry together, those that really believed in the mission to get more women into cyber and remain in it. And I pulled them in to really work on how we can do a better job of making women safe at events when they join events. So we created a code of conduct. I wrote it all up. That's available. It's been downloaded by over 100 event organizers. And so we'll do other kind of initiatives like that. I've got another one that will be coming up. It will probably be more of a training initiative, but I'll be calling the industry together to help more of us, so to collaborate. What do you know that I don't know? This is what I found out. Pooling that information so we can kind of wrap it up, or not productize it, but really kind of wrap it up and get it out to more people so that more people can be safer. So that's kind of what I do. And I also will act as a voice for the voiceless. So because I work for myself and I will hear things, I'm able to be more free sometimes with how I communicate. So there's a lot of silencing that is going on, and so I can kind of communicate what in this instance, say women are feeling, or men are feeling, or anyone in between genders is feeling, so I can like get that out. Whereas at the moment, and what has been happening is that's not happening because people are afraid, or not allowed to. So a lot of people contact me and say, this is happening, or help me. So I'll kind of bring that awareness without naming people, out into the market, so that we can again like do a better job, and there's more understanding rather than misunderstandings.
No, sure. I think that I think being an advocate in that sense is super important. I think it's going to be needed more and more in the future, and
And
that
it's
kind of
also, it's also being independent as well. So it's just like, well, you've got an agenda there. So say with the insecurity movement, it really is independence. So it could be, well, I don't have an initiative for really doing it. It's literally, let's find the truth, let's improve things, as opposed to, well, you've got an initiative because you're an accreditation company, so you want to sell more training courses or whatever. And I'm not saying that accreditation companies all do that, and that's their whole reason behind it, but sometimes there is an agenda for doing certain things, so I bring that independence as much as possible to certainly the work I do as a change agent or women's activist.
I mean, I think what you're doing is super important. I think I genuinely do feel that it's something that is underrepresented. So more power to you. I mean, kudos to you for standing up for, especially saying that you're the voice for the voiceless. I think it's a very good way of putting it, because I mean, let's face it, the truth is that some people just don't want to talk about it.
Well, they're frightened of saying the wrong thing.
Yeah.
They're frightened of, or not allowed to be a spokesperson. Like their company, they'll get in trouble from their company, or they're frightened of being trolled.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like, okay, or they're frightened for another reason. They might be frightened legally. There's so many different reasons, like so many different fears out there, and it's difficult. I understand those. And I am prepared to voice the concerns and the fears, so that gets out into the market, so that we can do something about it. Because like we work in safety.
Yeah.
And it's so important that we're making our world in cyber safe for people in it. Yes, we want to go out there and secure technologies and make for a safer world, but we have to improve the safety within our world of cyber, within our industry. And unless there is someone actually doing this work who is able to be a voice for the voiceless, and who has that courage, because you do open yourself up to being attacked or trolled or misunderstood. Sure. So I try really, really hard to be understood, and that's why I'm careful with the words that I use, particularly my written words. So there is that understanding, because I do care enormously about this industry, and the people within it, and doing the work that we have to do, so that we have a safer world, a more prosperous world, because we need it.
Yep, I can only agree. But what got you into this world of cyber? Did you have a proper let's say a foundation that would help you propel you to where you are?
Well, I trained as a textile designer, so it's just like I see patterns. Now, for me, it's just like I see trends and I see patterns, and that kind of comes easily to me. So although I'm not I was never a hands-on hacker. I built a hacking or penetration testing company, and I see trends and I can see where the market is going and things like that, which is useful for me. Yes, I could have gone into that, if I'd wanted to, but to be quite frank with you, I've actually resisted doing that. It's kind of intriguing to me, but especially because I can see patterns. that comes easily to me. But I've chosen not to do that, because I actually enjoy people. Even though I'm an introvert, I'm really sociable, but I really enjoy people, and I enjoy more of the business side to it. And it's interesting just bringing that up, because I was speaking to someone recently, actually, this amazing woman in the UK, and she was actually talking about the business side of cyber. And what she was saying, which I think is particularly interesting, is that cyber is actually in the wrong category. It's been placed in technology, but it really should be placed in business. And if we were to do that, then maybe some of our challenges for budget or even recruitment would improve. So for me, it's always really been about the people side of things and the business side of things. That's been more interesting than being like a hands-on techie.
That's actually an interesting, very interesting thought, because most of, well, let's say traditionally, the IT guy shows up when your keyboard doesn't work or when something doesn't work, right?
Yeah.
And this is where cyber has fallen into as well. So it's like, something's gone wrong, we need to get these guys to fix it. Whereas I actually, and I kind of agree with this. I think if it was more, at least received more as a business operation, there would be more thought into dispatching the right people to do the right job and ensure that there's business continuity.
Yeah, and obviously as part of innovation as well. I mean, it's a process. It needs to be so much more integrated. And I know we're trying to do that as an industry, but it's just taking time. So we need to improve the awareness. We need to improve this whole situation where cyber or security is typically regarded as the department that likes to say no, the blocker, the disabler. It's just like, no, we need to do a lot of work on that in security, building those bridges, and reaching out and really trying to understand, more of the stakeholders and become a better friend to them, a better enabler, as opposed to just kind of like locking down and it kind of like, I don't know, it just sometimes it annoys me, just the whole kind of focus on no and being so rigid. It's like, okay, well, what are we going to accept? What risks are we going to accept? What are we going to let go? You can take those risks on because I'm not going to be responsible for those. But if you as a business owner, as a stakeholder in charge of this, understand those and are willing to accept them despite us in security telling you the risks of that, then that's fine. So there just needs to be quite a bit of work involved, I think, in that accountability, responsibility for what is occurring and improving the situation in terms of awareness, so that we are seen to be more enabling than we are right now.
What do you think the gap is in terms of getting shareholders to understand that people in cyber are enablers? We're enabling you to continue your business in case there is an attack or in case something really tragic happens. This is the unit that makes sure you can still be profitable.
I think we need to expand our thinking capabilities. So there are several aspects. I think in cyber, we need to understand business much more. So right now we're just it's very narrow. We're in our little bubble. All we can see is risks around us. It's just like, oh my God, like, don't do that. You're just opening up all of these, these dangers. And then we can see like the work that comes from that, when at the moment, like when you look at how under-resourced many of us are and the attacks that are coming in and all the opportunities for attackers, it's just even more concerning, because there's so much pressure, there's so much demands, there's so much burnout on cybersecurity professionals right now, and from a leadership perspective as well. I mean, many are just going to, I'm out of here, or I'm going to do this instead, because the pressures and the stresses are just too much for me. So we need to, we need to expand our thinking so that we understand business much more and we can see things from their perspective. And the business does too. They need to understand it from ours. So there is a meeting between the two or the multiple stakeholders, so that we are all better informed as to what exactly we're doing, and we can come together and we can sort out a problem and decide, well, who's accountable or not, given the risks. So there is like that's what I would say, better understanding from all parties. So that could be that there's an intermediary if that's a word, involved in that. Some companies do have the luxury of that, being the bridge builder and moving projects on and helping with that flow, but other companies don't. So there can be this clash. We're saying no, and you're saying yes, and then there's a block or animosity.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, okay, how can we get around security because they're just a disabler? They're going to slow it down, and all of that stuff. So yeah, we need to really improve that, our understanding, the awareness, and not become so rigid. And the other thing that we need more safety, actually,
Mm-hmm.
for us as professionals. Because of the situation, it's just like, let's blame security. Oh, it's their fault. They didn't do this. Yeah. She did this. He did that. Whoever. It's just like, who can we blame? Whose head is going to roll? Should, and all of that. So we do need more psychological safety. We need leaders higher up to really understand what we're doing and actually have our backs. So yes, we can improve. We can step up. We can learn to speak in business language as opposed to technical jargon. And there's so much talk about that. And whenever I hear it from some professionals, some cybersecurity professionals, and they'll be saying that they need to do that, and then they'll just be communicating it with jargon, mm-hmm. And it's just like, and I've seen that happen so much of the time, and it's just like, can't you hear yourself? You're not speaking in a normal manner so that more people can understand exactly what you mean by that. It's not inclusive language. So all parties really need to step up and improve themselves and really take a good look at their faults, how they can improve, how they can do better, whilst at the same time actually being quite kind to themselves given the situation.
No, it's tough. And actually, you've just let's say plucked a seed of something out of my head. And I was having a conversation with someone recently. I can't name them, unfortunately, but he was previously a CISO of a very large telco. And he moved over to PricewaterhouseCoopers. Now, PricewaterhouseCoopers has actually created a role called the BISO.
Yes.
The Business Information Security Officer. And I think that's really interesting. And he also touched upon the fact that this is now a trending leadership position. And one of the other things that they specialize in is human communications.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I thought that was really interesting because it kind of draws what you said into a full circle as well. Because I think this is definitely something lacking. In fact, I was looking at cyber-related courses recently, and one of the specializations, believe it or not, was human communications. So there seems to be something here where specialists from our world are just not doing right, and it could be maybe what's causing that gap.
Absolutely, but even if you look at the BISO role, it's when I've looked at job specs, I don't think it really explains what they do. Again, it's just like, can you not just like simplify these things and actually really communicate what it is that you need? Mm-hmm. Rather than having like so many requirements, requirement, technical. It's just like, no, actually what you actually need is someone to do this, and this, to act as that bridge, to act as that champion or that bridge builder, to really get to know the stakeholders, to really build bridges and to get them on board. I mean, quite frankly, that would be enough as a role. as opposed to the requirements that are typically included in a BSO role. It's just off-putting.
I think, that's one of the things, isn't it? I think whenever people are trying to get into cyber as well, a lot of these roles are really not well defined, and they ask you for crazy amounts of years of experience for tools that have existed, let's say, for 5 years. It was quite fun recently when one of the, let's say, origin coders of Kubernetes was posting a job advert, and she basically said, okay, they want 10 years of experience in Kubernetes, but it's only existed for 6 years. How do we do this?
Yeah.
It's one of the other gaps, I think, in especially in cyber. People just don't understand what needs to be done and what the capabilities of each one of these contributors need to be.
Yeah, and I think people are just so busy. So it's cut and paste a lot of the time, and they're not actually, because they are so involved in it. They're not actually stepping back and going, okay, that's not really required. That's not really required. If they had someone managing them, someone who was doing that and going, well, do you really need that? Almost like teaching them. It's just like, let's strip it out. We don't need these things, and then like acting more in an entrepreneurial manner. It's just like, well, what is working? Because they don't. It's just like, yeah, job done, next. That's out. Big requirements. Want this and this. And then if they're in a large company, then it's handed over to talent acquisition. They're having to manage it, get someone on board, and do the interviews, and there's a whole process. So, things just need to be, I think, rebuilt quite drastically, and maybe even teaching, actually having that intervention in terms of, well, what does good look like? This is how to write a good job spec, or let's try this and be open to the returns. We might not have got it right. We might need to add more detail, or we might need to strip even more out. I'm not seeing that analysis, from how is this performing? Almost like attention to detail. It's literally hand over, next, and that's fine, because many have enough of a job to do. But somewhere this needs to be caught. If we want improvement, then we've got to be more detailed, and we've got to be more of an engineer in our approach, and test like what's working, and be open to the returns.
Yeah, but it's a lack of care, though, don't you think? Maybe doesn't that come up from some sort of passion to just get something done the right way and ensure that the product is delivered the right way?
You could easily say that, I think, but sometimes that comes from teaching management. It's just like, if they've never been taught, then it just won't occur to them. It's just like, I've done my job, next. Because all of these tasks that they've got to do with only a certain amount of time, is really hard. And unless they're picked up on it and they're educated in terms of, well, what does this mean? Then chances are they're just not going to do it, because it's like, yeah, I've done that, next. Done that, next. Yeah, that's fine. You're literally task complete. So almost like tunnel vision, task complete, as opposed to, oh, well, what's the implication? Oh, I didn't realize that. Oh, yeah, you're right. Okay, how do I do that? And some things are really, really simple. I mean, like, I was having a conversation with a CISO the other day, and she was talking about strategy and like putting a strategy together, and how I think she asked her team to do this. She asked her team, it might not be a strategy, but it was something like really quite straightforward, or put an argument together, or a problem statement. I know she definitely brought up, like, they didn't know how to write a problem statement. And it's like, really? Like, oh my God. Wow. So there are lots of really, really simple things that so many people don't know how to do. And remember, we're working with a whole variety of a workforce. Many are neurodiverse and don't even realize that. And I'm not saying that a neurodivergent person can't write a problem statement or anything like that. But what I am saying is we've got a whole spectrum of people in our workforce with a variety of talents they're skilled at many, many things, but some things, we're presuming that they know how to do and they don't. But sometimes they're too frightened to say, I don't know how to do that. Or sometimes they're just not aware of it. So it's just like, I didn't know how to do that. Thanks for teaching me. So sometimes it is a case of like going back to basics, with some of these simple jobs and going, okay, right, fine, this is how to. And again, making those as fast as possible.
But let's touch on something you're obviously very passionate about. So you've dedicated yourself to exposing and growing people in the industry. What is that like, and what are the challenges you face?
Yeah, so I do a lot of development, a lot of leadership, training, and helping, coaching, mentoring, training a whole variety of people to really evolve. I would say, I absolutely love that work because I never know what I'm going to get, really. So it requires me to think creatively. It requires me to really support the people involved, and I love seeing things grow, and develop. So it's so rewarding. I really am interested in people. So it's just like seeing them sometimes challenge me. I'm a challenger by nature, so I enjoy a challenge, and I enjoy a challenger. I enjoy people asking questions, and I enjoy seeing people develop and improve and just fly. And that is just the best thing. It makes me so proud to have even been a part of their world. And and I'm all about relationships. People say to me, you genuinely care. And I genuinely do, because I am a people person. So I love interacting with people. I love finding out about them. I love seeing them do well. It's amazing. I love hearing from them. This week I've just put out some Black Hat scholarships through their insecurity scholarships, actually, but the women get to go to Black Hat in Europe, and I've done this for years. I've put 356 women through my scholarships, the insecurity scholarships, and that's about a value of about $500,000 US. And what's amazing is, for me, when women come back and they say, it literally changed my life. It literally changed my life. I can't thank you enough. And this week, because I got notifications out, it was just like, oh my God, my email was just like filled with like, thank you, thank you, thank you. It's like my Christmas time. You've made my day. You've made my week. I'm so excited. And it's just like amazing. But then hearing the stories that follow, stories that come from my book, like, you changed my life, you got me into cybersecurity, or you made a difference. It just like helps me to keep going, because it's not easy being an entrepreneur. It's really not easy what I'm doing. I am breaking ground, all the time. There's no one there to catch me, when I fall. There isn't, because I'm a leader of my business, and I'm making decisions and taking risks based on signals that I get from the market, having conversations, looking at trends, and also following my intuition. So, those little stories like really keep me going. So I love working with you.
Yeah, I mean that sounds amazing. Those scholarships sound pretty cool, though. So, what is
They
it
are.
like? What is it like for someone to be participating in this journey?
Well, like I said, life changing. So I mean, I offer some of the training programs that I do. I'll offer scholarships for those, and then partnering with Black Hat really has happened over the past three or 4 years, maybe. And I've really worked hard to get more passes to Black Hat. So if they come to me and said, we can only offer you this amount, I pushed back and said, can you give me this? Can you double it? Or we're going virtual. We got the pandemic. You gave me 25 last year. Can you do 50 because it's all virtual? And like they've come back and said yes. Or this year they said, we'll give you 20. And I said, can you do 25? You've given me 25 every single year, apart from 2 years when I asked for 50. So or can you give me another 2? Because I've got some amazing applicants, and I don't want to not let these other 2 go. they've come back and said yes. So I work really hard and I push hard, for these things to happen.
Mhm.
I push hard in the market for people to pay me when they want me to work for free. It's like, no, every bit of money that I that comes into my business, once the mortgage is paid and things like that, the kids are paid and everything like that, goes to the cause, the mission. So I am going to push back, and you need to pay me for this, because that's me helping the industry. It's me helping the mission to move forward. So you need to pay me, and I'm not going to do it unless you pay me.
Well, if you're good at something, you don't do it for free, right?
Well, this is the only time I do is when I'm working with charities or initiatives.
Mhm.
So charities that I believe in or initiatives, and it's just like,
Yeah.
in those cases, then yes I do. So I do, but not if it's a commercial entity.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, that's how it should be. So you also, I think, let's say, I shouldn't say also, but I think one of your biggest focus points is empowering more women in the industry as well,
Yes.
and giving them a stronger foothold in the industry, or maybe even just getting their feet in the door. What's that been like?
Yeah, I mean, it's great. It's really rewarding. Wherever I go, I'm like an ambassador. It's literally, I'm looking for talent and being the ambassador for cyber. So if I'm going out shopping, if I'm looking for clothes and things like that, it's just like, and there's a sales assistant who's there, I'm naturally communicating with them, finding out about them, and seeing, if they want to come into cyber. So I'm not pitching every person that I see, but I'm just listening out for clues. So I'm always kind of on the lookout for people who could come into our industry wherever I go. It's just like built into my DNA. What I found with this work is it's really, really hard to get people into the industry. So they say, the market says, and the media reports that we need to get more women into the industry. You'll read reports that it's 20%, 25%, or whatever percentage it is, and we need to do better, and it's so amazing, and so on. But the reality is, it's actually really hard to get into the industry. So there are existing blockers. And so if you are a woman, it's not uncommon for you to find that it might take you a year or longer to get into the industry. So that's a challenge, and it's still a challenge. And that's despite this appetite, for getting particularly women to come into the industry. There are blocks and disablers. So therefore, if it is an industry, for someone who's thinking like, that sounds amazing, I'm really interested in it, it might be this aspect, the technical aspect I'm interested in as a pen tester, or it could be more of the human aspect I'm interested in, or another aspect. Be prepared for it to be hard to get into, and for you to have to jump through certain hoops in order to do that. And be prepared to almost like not pivot into it, but say one example, one woman that I met at an event, she was a vet, so highly qualified. And not, I want to be specific with this, not a veteran, but a vet. So someone who, someone who has practiced for, or been educated for 7 years, a vet trains for. It's one of the most difficult degrees to get into. You need all of the sciences and everything like that. So I was speaking to her. She was really interested, and she said, I'd really like to join this industry. So I enabled certain things for her and gave her more information, introduced her to certain people, spoke at events, like promoting her and everything like that, connected her to other people. She had to come in as a coder. She had to go into software development in order to then move into cyber, because no one in cyber would take her on. It was that much of a challenge, so sometimes you are going to have to weave your way into security in order to get into it. So it's not it's not as easy as it should be. There are some programs out there that are helping, and they are having results. They're getting some good results with moving into, coming in and being trained, doing one of these part-time or full-time courses, whether that's 8 weeks, 16 weeks, or months longer, and then helping them to get into the industry. There are some programs out there that are doing some good work, but there's not enough, considering the state that we are in.
So, okay. So I'm not known for being very politically correct or diplomatic in my posing of questions. So I'm just going to ask you very directly. Why and how do women face more challenges getting into cyber, and what can be done to alleviate these stresses? Because having a more diverse workforce is important. It brings
Yeah.
in so many more uplifting elements to every single team. No matter where they are, no matter what kind of workplace or let's say segment of the workforce they might be in. So diversity is very important.
It's really important not to make women wrong. So it's very easy for leaders or hiring managers to kind of say, well, we don't have enough women, there aren't enough women, and kind of like blame women for the lack of women in the industry. The women are there. Women want to come into this industry. So I want to be really, really clear on that. We're doing a better job of awareness. So by going out, by speaking at events, by going into schools, and really and having articles that are in different papers or magazines and things like that, we're doing a much better job of actually informing early entrants, whether they're kids in school or in college or in university, or even younger women wanting to pivot. We're doing a much better job of awareness. So it's just like, this is the industry, this is what's available to you, this is how diverse an industry it is. Like, come join us, we need you, we value you. So that message is becoming much better, and we are getting out to more people that way. So good job done. We can do more of that, so we can always extend our reach and hone our message. The biggest problem that I see really is the recruitment aspect. So it's really enabling women in this case to come into the industry. So what is the hiring process like? How biased is it? This unconscious bias. So the recruitment process, which is biased towards men. So it's just like, do you understand, how biased this is towards a woman, and why? And that's why you're not attracting the women, because it's actually biased, and you don't realize that because you're quite happy in your ways. And the other thing also is that a lot of companies and leaders don't actually care. They don't care. They don't give a shit if women are coming into the industry at all. They just want someone to do the job. How many times do you hear someone saying, I really don't care about gender at all, I just want someone to do this job? Or I'm like a big not fan, but I really believe in the mission, I really want more women to come in, but really I don't, it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter what gender, I just want someone to do the job, and I'm not biased in all of this. Well, actually everyone is biased. So the better you understand that you are biased, because that's how you're wired as a human being, and then you look at your processes to really de-bias as much as you can, what's going on, with the job specs, with the messaging, with the interview process, whether that's a system that you're using, technology system, or whether it's a system you're using in terms of like you asking the questions. And you've got to look at like the bias that's going on there and do a better job. And you've got to be, I think, in this case, it's not that we've got to be more honest, but there's just so much bullshit around. There really is. There's a demand that is coming in from other parts of the business, typically, demanding that these metrics are met. We need more women. We need the parity. Tick box. It's like a compliance exercise. Tick box, we're not. I'm not going to get my bonuses, or I'm going to get. There's going to be a penalty for me if I'm not meeting these. But really, they don't care. They don't care about it, because if they did, they would be looking at these processes, and they would be doing more. There would be more activity involved if that was the case, and there isn't. It's next year. Oh, we can't get budget for it. Oh, we'll just get another women's speaker in. Oh, we'll develop a women's network. All the same activity just being done time and time again. And it's literally almost just to satisfy, yeah, we've done it, we've tried, we can't get them. They're not there. Women aren't there. Women don't want to do it. So that is going on. Mm-hmm. And then we have, from the women side of things, the women perspective, because it is like a meeting it's still the bridge. We both need to walk from both sides of the bridge to the middle. Women need to, actually not take risks, because often we're told that women don't take enough risks, and women see risk in a different way to men. So it's just like, it's not that we don't take risks, because of course we do. We're just like measured when we do. We see risk in a different way, so our perception of risk is different to a man's. And there's been loads of research on this, and the World Economic Forum track this as well when they look at their global risk perception. So they track gender to see the differences, which is quite interesting when you look at it. But it's like, women do maybe need to take that step forward and be more courageous, or look at a job spec and go, okay, right, fine, I don't have that, but what the hell, I'm going to apply. Or they need to, if they recognize that they are hesitating, then maybe they need to reach out to someone. That could be a mentor, or it could be someone else in the industry, and say, look, or someone in that company, and say, well, do you really need that? Or what is it really like? Or these are the skills that I have, so that they are being nudged or gently, not forced or pushed, but it's like, just go for it. Like, what's the worst that can happen? So we need to evolve. It's just like, just go for it. What's the worst that can happen? They can say no. We'll get good at that whole rejection piece. So it's just like, the more no's that you get, the closer you get to a yes. So there is the evolution from both sides. So we talk a lot about the imposter syndrome and things like that, which isn't a female only syndrome. It affects all people, but it's just like, okay, just go for it. Take that step forward. What's the worst that can happen? I'm here. I've got you. If it's a no, it's all good. So they need that support system around. And often that comes from having a network, so building the network, building the connections, having a support system in place through mentoring or just camaraderie. Support. Those are things that can really help us to get more women in, and also remain in it, because the other challenge that we have is women come in and then they go, do you know what? This is absolutely crap. I've not been onboarded. Like, okay. Wow, that happens. I'm isolated. Companies that just kind of go, make the best of this. Some people do really well with that, but others don't. And it's particularly challenging given the situation we're in, distributed workforce, so the onboarding process needs to really support all workers, and then there needs to be that development, once they're in that system. We're going to catch you if you are hesitating, if you feel that you're failing, because you're not, but you feel like you are. And if you feel like you are, then there's more chance of that employee flight. She's going to go because she feels, I'm not wanted, I'm not needed, I'm not valued, I'm no good at this. That spiraling. So there has to be that support system there to catch women who might be going through, might be thinking in that manner.
I think you brought us some pretty good points here, and I have something to maybe reflect on this a little bit, maybe a little bit differently. So I was in hospitality for just over a decade, right? And I was involved with hotels in the Indian Ocean, so Maldives and Sri Lanka, and in these regions, all the tropical, bare feet in the sand kind of properties. And there was a trend. There was a trend where a lot of the hotels would start getting green certification.
Yes.
But when you actually looked at, what these hotels were doing, you really investigate as to, is this how they're managing the properties? It's not really green, but they've got those certifications because they paid for it.
Yeah.
Is this something you feel is like a flip side analogy of what's happening in the industry as well? So they say, yes, we're campaigning for women, we're doing all these things to attract more women, but they're not actually.
Yeah, it's compliance. It's tick box led,
Okay.
compliance led. So a lot of the team aren't on board. Because literally it's just like, we don't care if it's a woman, we just want the job done. And then they've got pressures, like delivery pressures, so it's understandable. It's just like a job's come in, and we need this job doing, and we're growing at this percentage, we just need to get the job done. So it's just like, well, who would want to wait? It's just like, yeah, we've got someone who fulfills our requirements, and now you're asking us to look at gender. It's just like, for goodness sake, it's just like, that's causing me a problem. So sometimes it's a case of like, how can we get around that? Because of the demands. See, it's very similar like to security. It's just like it's a disabler. Well, how can we get around that? We just want to get our software. We just want to get our project, our program, our app out there. Security say no. So how can we like get around that? Oh, let's not get them involved. Let's not get them involved. Let's just get it out there and see what happens. They can like reprimand us, after the event or whatever. So it's that understanding. And also, if we actually made the process easier, then we'd probably find that we would have more people on board. And if we actually showed the benefits to them, it's just like, well, what difference does this actually make? At the moment, it's just like gender tick, as opposed to, well, actually improves the situation for all of us. We all get better employee rights, because that just typically happens. We'll get, it's like a better culture, a better environment, a more natural, normal environment where we are mixing and working with people of all genders. As opposed to it's all men. Like, who wants to like work in an environment where it's all one gender? Like, it's really boring. It's just like, it's not normal.
It's I feel like I'm walking into a trap. No, I'm kidding. It's me trying to find my make sure that I don't say something off key here. But I do agree with you. Like, but I mean, as I was saying even before, yes, while it may be boring to work in let's say an office space or with a team that's purely one gender, I think each person, especially when we talk about diversity, brings in characteristics and traits that uplift the team. Different learnings, different backgrounds, people from different walks of life bring different, let's say, inputs as well. And I think these kind of things uplift the team, and I think having that is huge.
You just get better perspectives. I mean, look, if you want speed, if you want to go fast, then you're going to have people who are similar to you, and that could be gender, or it could be experience and skills and things like that. But if you want a better solution, you're going to mix it up. You're going to mix age, gender, like culture, all of those things, so that you get those different perspectives. It's just like, what am I not seeing? Help me to understand. Oh my God, yeah, we've completely missed that. It's like, it's so important. but you will go slower, and there may be a rub. There may be more of a rub, with personalities and things like that, with people who aren't similar to you.
Mm-hmm.
So, but you will always get a better solution. I mean, reports say that decision making improves 85% of the time, or 87% of the time, with a full gender mix, with that diversity, not full gender, sorry, with full diversity. With gender, I think it's 73%, but with full diversity, it's something like, it's in the 80s, compared to homogenous,
Mm-hmm.
which is in the 50s. So there is a massive leap, and also performance increases, productivity increases. I think you get 2 times the speed. So quality of decisions, you're faster, so more productive. So there's so many efficiencies.
It's almost like a win-win, isn't it?
Completely.
Yeah,
it is.
We're talking about the fact that most women, when they see a role that is being advertised, okay, there's a lesser chance of a woman, or let's say a female, or applying for this role than a male would, because the male is more adept to taking a risk in saying, okay, this is not exactly a role that I completely fit into, but I'm going to give it a shot anyways. Whereas the opposite, or the opposing, would say, this is not really something I fit in perfectly, so I'm not going to apply for it. Why do you think this sort of risk analysis happens? And what can we do to, make people, give it a go? Because we all need to apply for things that we're not really fit for. That's how we grow at the end of it, right?
Yeah, well, for a start, that kind of view, I'm pretty sure, comes from an alleged HP study that no one can find. So Sheryl Sandberg wrote about it in her book, very famous book, Lean In. Like, there is no HP study. No one has been able to find it, which actually details that. So is that a myth, or isn't it? I wrote about it in my book, Insecurity, and another bit of research that was done by another woman, which asks a slightly different question. But with it, I think, irrespective of whether or not that report has been done, if you speak to many women out there, they will say, the anecdotes, the stories will be, yeah, I didn't apply because I didn't meet all of the requirements. I've looked at job specs before, and it's just like, yeah, if you want this, that's not me. But actually when you speak to the person, it's just like, no, we don't want that, and actually we just need to improve the job spec. You completely fulfill the criteria. You're exactly what we're looking for. So we do need to do more education on that and speak up more about that without making women wrong again. Like, oh, well, it's a woman. Like, oh, you're not applying because you actually don't meet all the criteria, so you're the one to blame. Kind of like, I don't want to make women wrong in this. Again, it's like, some of that might be going on. I've known guys who've looked at job specs and kind of gone, I don't meet all the requirements, I'm not applying. And I've looked at them and kind of looked at it, or maybe know the company and encouraged that person, male or female, to go for it. So, yes, maybe there is more of a likelihood for men to look at a job spec and chance it, but maybe that comes down to risk. If women see risk in a different way to men, is it that they are more concerned about being rejected if they don't fulfill? So again, it comes down to the perspective on risk. What's the likelihood of me not being moved forward to an interview stage, or just being rejected? Am I going to waste my time on that? No.
Okay, yeah.
So is that just because we see risk in a different way? It's not worth my time. It's too risky because I'm not going to get it. I'm not going to waste my time. But I am going to look for job specs and roles where I meet, more of the criteria, the vast majority, if not all of them. So I think that's what's going on. So if we improve the quality of our job specs, then and strip them out, this is what we need, and these are showstoppers for us. You only need to meet these. Maybe you can have these others as a bonus, but I would strip it down. It's just like, this is what we want. The bare essentials. If you don't have those, you're just not going to be suited to this job. Because then you can look at it and go, okay, right, fine, I don't meet the criteria. So therefore, if you do apply, and those are absolutely absolute requirements, then it's you are wasting your time. So get better at writing job specs. So don't make women wrong. Like, it shouldn't be us having to kind of go, yeah, well, I only meet all of those 50% of them. I'm just going to be like the guys. I'm just going to change. There's evolution, and there's making someone wrong and change. It's like blame and shame. It's more of the blame culture coming through. It's blame women. Oh, women out there. Women aren't applying. You just have to change. You're wrong. You don't fit in. It's just like, no, you become better at writing these job specs, the essentials, and then you're going to get applicants.
Yeah, because it's a shame. I mean, there's so many talented people out there who I think, if you really want to get a role, just give it a shot and go,
Yeah.
It's just one of those things. I like to always end the show by asking this one specific question. If there's three points, or let's say three, specific attributes that you profess to someone, or that you'd recommend anyone to either learn or evolve into, to get into this field and have a sustainable future, what would those 3 points be?
3 attributes.
Yeah.
So what qualities am I looking for?
What qualities are you looking for in a person, or what qualities should this person embody, or let's say try to learn?
A growth mindset. So I need them to be open. This is what I would look for. I would want them to be curious, and to have high standards, and to have a growth mindset. So be really open to learning and to discovering truth. Finding out the truth. It's just like, let's discover what the truth is about this. Let's look at it from different angles. Let's challenge ourselves. So growth mindset, I would look for a challenger. And obviously it depends on what job you want to fulfill, but these would be the traits and characteristics I'd be looking for. A good communicator. So those are probably, I think, the top traits I would be looking for.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting to see curiosity is the one that keeps coming up time and time again.
And I would also look for someone who had compassion.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, you're absolutely right. Curiosity is, I don't want anyone who's passionate about security. I really don't. I can't bear to hear that, oh, we just want passionate people. I just don't. I can't. It's just that I don't want someone who's passionate about security. It's not a requirement for me. If they are, that's fine, but I don't require it. It's just irrelevant to me. What would be more appealing to me is, like, if you're passionate about something, say sustainability or climate, and you want to make an impact, through security, that would be more, or a particular focus, but you're doing it through the vehicle of security. Security is a way of being.
Yeah.
So I don't. Passion is not a requirement for me. Interest and curiosity.
Yeah, I think that's one of the most, let's say, relevant traits in almost any field, I think, and I think more so in cyber, because you just need to keep learning, don't you? You need to be aware of what's happening around you. I mean, the world is evolving so fast, especially technology.
Well, this is it, and that's why it's just that you've got to have that growth mindset. If you're fixed and rigid, and let's face it, we do have a lot of people who are like that in security. They know it. They'll still be spouting off about having a growth mindset, and that's what we need. But actually, they're so fixed in their mindset. They are so rigid. They are not open. They're not improving themselves. They're not developing. They're not aware of how the market is really changing at all. They're just so fixed. So we need people who are more open, more challenging, will see things in different ways. They're curious. It's like, well, and also the design thinking. It's just like, well, what does that, let's ask that question another way. What does it look like from that perspective? What does it look like from this perspective? It's just play with that. A playfulness, it's just like, that would be fun as well. Curiosity, playfulness, intrigue.
Yeah. I think curiosity, growth mindset, that also brings one very really important attribute, which is moldability and coachability. I think a lot of people need to understand that, yes, you might be taking on a challenge, but the more moldable and coachable you are, the better you're going to be at not only your growth, but also, adapting to certain situations and handling challenges better as well.
Yeah, we also need people who can cope with high levels of stress and pressure, because we have so much of it.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
If that's not you, then this industry is not going to be right for you, no matter what the culture is like. It's high performance, it's stress, it's pressure, it's thinking on your feet, adapting. Yeah, all of those things. High pressure.
It's amazing. That's really cool. I think that was a really good way of putting it, to be very honest. Jane, thank you very much for being on our show. It's been a pleasure having you. I think I've learned something today, and I hope our listeners also have learned something. I think it's important what you represent and what you're doing in the industry. I don't think it's been done enough. I think the future is ours now. I think there's a lot more to be done, and it's amazing to be speaking with someone who's kind of, let's say, burning the front of the trail and leading the pack in this era.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much for having me, Brad. It's been really great chatting to you.
Thank you, Jane.